Go, go, Power Rangers. Is there a phrase that takes you back to childhood more than that? Disclaimer, this nostalgic video is aimed at those of us born from like 1985 to 1995, but all of the fans are welcome, of course. The Power Rangers was probably one of the hypest franchises out there when I was a little kid, with almost everyone in school having a favorite ranger that they were probably willing to argue about at lunchtime or on the playground. The series ran for a few years and developed a rabid fan base among young children, which equaled a seemingly unlimited source of merchandising opportunity. Power Rangers seemed to have no end in sight, and this led to the production of a feature-length film in the year of our Zord, 1995. So where were you when the interdimensional force of good Zordon chose 5 teenagers with attitude to defend the Earth itself against the evil forces of Rita Repulsa and her eventual husband, the honestly kind of terrifying Lord Zed? Seeing that I was a whole 6 years old when this movie released, I was spending most of my days in elementary school talking about which ranger was the best and discussing the intricate details of Zord power levels. For the record, the Red Ranger and Tyrannosaurus Zord are always peak in my opinion. Get wrecked, Tommy fans. Hello there, I'm Dr. Ursa, and I talk about things I like and hope that you like me in return. Saban's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a smash hit in the United States and was produced relatively cheaply by utilizing non-union talent and repurposed footage from Japan's Super Sentai series. This meant that the action sequences were taken directly from the Zyuranger series that originally aired from 1992 to 93 in Japan. Mighty Morphin took these battle scenes and filmed their own footage around them that allowed a Western cast to portray the Rangers when they were out of their suits. This led to our main cast of Rangers, Jason, Kimberly, Billy, Zach, and Trini, with Trini and Zach eventually being replaced by Aisha and Adam respectively. This was due to behind-the-scenes turmoil over compensation, and we should just state it now that Haim Saban is probably not up for any Best Boss Ever awards. David Yost, who played the original Blue Ranger Billy, was targeted for his sexual orientation, and while the 90s were a different time, that was not very Power Ranger-like behavior by anyone involved. He eventually got fed up and walked off set one day, and honestly, who can blame him? David Yost did appear in the 2023 Netflix film, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, so it does seem like some of the bad blood has been settled. One last shout out for the original Blue Ranger. Anyway, this movie was filmed in and around Sydney, Australia in late 1994 and 95, with additional footage being captured for later episodes of the television series. It is important to note that this movie kind of exists in its own canon, with the main setting being directly copied from the show with several creative liberties taken. This is mostly reflected in upgraded costumes and sets, with these armored versions of the usual Mighty Morphin suits that I always loved, as well as a new take on the command center that took advantage of a feature-length budget. Lots of blinky lights, RGB, eat your heart out. I have learned from many informative videos on YouTube about this movie that most of these sets are actually just basic wooden frames with painted aluminum foil around them, but 6-year-old me was ready to throw my life on the line for our chromatic defenders of Earth, so I won't spend too much time critiquing realism or anything like that. These old series were a lot of fun due to how they embraced their simple costumes and sets. Most of it was made to sell toys at the end of the day, so just keep your expectations at an appropriate level. Now, cheap sets and 90s CGI aside, this movie did actually put forth quite a bit more effort than your standard episode. This was mostly due to using all original footage for the film instead of cannibalizing even more Super Sentai, and this starts with the fun opening sequence of the Rangers participating in a charity skydiving event for the local observatory. Bulk and Skull even get in on this fun, with Tommy once again being the scene stealer and taking a snowboard with him on his jump. I mean, even this kid's dad wants to be Tommy. Always the show-off, that guy. I do appreciate this small Chekhov's gun moment here on the banner as they land, calling out an upcoming comment that will come into play later, so just file that away for now. Before moving on, we see Bulk and Skull have gone off target and land at a construction site where the workers soon discover the secret tomb of the film's main antagonist, who we will officially meet in just a moment. There is then a second musical montage of the Rangers, all rollerblading through the city, and man, did this make me think my teens and early 20s were going to be a lot cooler than they actually were. Do y'all ever think anyone notices that this crew of friends always color code their outfits? Like, does anyone ever question why they show up right after the Power Rangers beat some villain and wear these very specific colors? The Rangers' longtime villains, Rita Repulsa and Lord Zed, show up with Goldar and a new pig character in tow, and they proceed to wake up that previously mentioned main villain, Ivan Ooze. This guy is great. He hams it up with the best of them and really leans into the campy nature of the Power Rangers series. Ivan is an old foe of Zordon's and immediately jumps at the chance to take on his personal hit squad of semi-child soldiers. As the Rangers show up to investigate, we get our first taste of some of that good old 90s CGI as the security guard transforms into Ivan Ooze right in front of them, before summoning a squad of Oozlings to fight the Rangers. The Rangers do their usual thing of attempting to take on the foes without morphing, only to get eventually overwhelmed and determine that they need to power up. We get a new variation of the now iconic morphing sequence and get a good look at the new armored suits that were designed for the movie. These things were great, and I have to ask the question of why they did not use them more after this production. Like, were they all destroyed or buried in the desert like that NES ET game? What a waste either way. As our heroes gain the upper hand, we get a few more plugs for new toys before cutting away to Ivan Ooze using the goo from Ghostbusters 2 to break into the command center and wreck the place. This leads to the Rangers losing their powers, thankfully right after defeating these new gooey putty stand-ins. They rally back to the command center and learn that Zordon is now exposed and dying due to being removed from his power chamber. Alpha saves the scene from being absolutely soul-crushing by telling the Rangers that there is a faraway power that could be claimed and used to restore both Zordon and the Rangers to their former glory. The only trick is that it will be a one-way trip, forcing them to succeed or be trapped forever on a faraway world. The Rangers all accept this responsibility, because of course they do, and travel through space to the new world of Phaedos, being seen by Ivan Ooze as they leave, forcing him to predate the Hawk Tuah memes by a couple decades and creating his raven-like Tengu warriors to pursue the Rangers. They literally fly into space in a direct callback to the flying monkeys from Wizard of Oz. Never change, Power Rangers. Never change. We next learn of Ivan's plan to take over Angel Grove, and it involves yet more of his purple goo. Magical ooze that does whatever he needs it to. He states his ambition to mind control all of the adults and force them to excavate his ancient war machines, the Ectomorphicons. The Rangers are immediately attacked by the winged Tengu warriors who are pursuing them, and since they cannot morph to power up, they kind of start to get their butts kicked. A strange woman arrives and rescues the Rangers with her scary spinning sticks that whistle. And I have to call this scene out, because it has bothered me since 1995. This new warrior, named Dulcia, starts by spinning her sticks around and around by rotating her wrist. Note the rotation. They then switch to a set of poles with the most obvious rotating handles ever. Look, I could not tell you why this has always bothered me more than any sparks or floppy foam swords or terrible monster costumes in any of this series. But on the big screen, it just jumped out at a young me and is kind of stuck there like one of Ivan's big purple loogies. Moving on, Dulcia takes the Rangers to her sanctuary and explains that the great power does exist on this planet, but only the pure of heart will be able to claim it. She then helps the Rangers unlock their ninjetti animal spirits with cool new ninja suits that come with them. And I always thought of this as like a 0.5 morph or something, with it granting increased power over a regular human, but not quite up to full Power Ranger levels. Adam is briefly disappointed in his animal spirit being a frog, but I mean bro, you were like the weakest prehistoric animal of the original crew, with no disrespect to either him or Zack, or any other pachyderm-powered Rangers out there. Our heroes move on towards the temple in search of their MacGuffin, encountering hostile skeletal dinosaurs, and even these armored stone golems protecting the actual temple itself. After proving themselves in battle, and with the never-ending power of teamwork, the Rangers unlock the temple, and this huge power coin slides out on a stone obelisk. Everyone looks around in awe as they finally get their power suits back, and they promptly take off back towards Earth. We see that Ivan has restored his giant robots, setting up the obvious Megazord battle to come, and he takes a surprisingly dark turn for what is supposed to be a kid's movie. He orders the now zombie-like parents to all march back to the dig site and jump off a cliff to their doom. The kid from earlier, named Fred, manages to rally the other children and even Bulk and Skull to attempt to stop the adults from taking this fatal plunge, with his dad being the Tommy fan from the beginning of the film. Our new Ninja Rangers arrive back in Angel Grove, still wearing the dinosaur-themed helmets from the Mighty Morphin era, by the way, and immediately summon their new Ninja Zords to battle Ivan's extremely chrome creations. There's some good back and forth, and everyone gets a fun little character moment or two, with Tommy the Show-Off even managing to save all the children from a fiery monorail crash. Yay, Tommy. When one of his robots is destroyed, Ivan merges with and takes over the remaining bipedal monster in order to fight the Rangers himself. The new Ninja Mega Falcon Zord is a pretty even match for now, and the two Windows 95 monstrosities end up clashing and rising up into outer space. While this is happening, we see that Fred, Bulk, and Skull have managed to stop the marching parents with the use of a water cannon, thus wrapping up this dark little side story before the Rangers seal the deal with Ivan. And speaking of Ivan's deal, Aisha ends up utilizing the ancient combat technique of kicking him in the nuts, and then they push him into the path of that comet from way back at the beginning. See, I told you to file that away. With Ivan defeated and his spells broken, the Rangers are able to return to the command center, only to learn that they have arrived too late. Zordon is dead. Not accepting this, the Rangers circle around him and channel their new ninjetti powers into their old mentor, magically restoring not only him but the entire command center in the process. Aww. Peace has been restored to Angel Grove, and all of the people gather together to celebrate their anonymous heroes, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And there's actually a fun little mid-credit scene if you stuck around, with Goldar sitting on the empty throne and then immediately bowing back down to his old masters Rita and Zed when they stroll back into the room. Everything has returned to the status quo, per almost every episode of Power Rangers ever. That's the formula. That was always part of the fun of the Rangers back in the day too. No matter what you knew, or had seen, or had not seen, you could just jump into an episode and see what hijinks were going down for the next 30-ish minutes. Of course, there were a few multi-episode arcs, and the show evolved quite a bit over the years up through Lost Galaxy and the original end of the series. As fun as this movie was back then, it was always mildly controversial on the playground, mostly due to the question of its place in the overall lore of Power Rangers. The show itself did a mini version of this plot a little while later, as they needed to transition to the new season of Super Sentai footage for combat. So even back then we knew that this was probably best thought of as a fun retelling of the main events instead of the gospel truth. Either way, I had this one in one of those puffy VHS cases and almost wore the dang tape out back in the day. I will always prefer Jason over Tommy, and will fight you in the comments over that. But I hope you enjoyed this stroll down a particularly high-kicking part of memory lane. Stay brave out there, fellow Rangers, and remember, it's morphin' time!